Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum students. Welcome back in class. It's online lesson number 2. This we can say that the topic that we are going to talk about today is d-axis. As you know that we already have taken the notes from the book that is of George Yule. We'll inshallah discuss it in class, physical class as well. Till that. What is d-axis, and here is a sort of, we can say that, brief sort of introduction to the term d-axis. So let us define the term d-axis before going into detail about the definitions that are written over here. Firstly, if we look at this word d-axis, it's in linguistics it is called as the use of the word such as a pronoun to refer to something that must be identified from the wider context, or if we look at the definition that is given by George Yule himself. According to him, the word d-axis is a technical term, and it is derived from Greek word which means that for of the which means we can say that for one of the most basic things we do with the help of utterances, or we can call it simply as the pointing via language. So this person Yule said that d-axis or d-axis in linguistics or pragmatics we mean that pointing via language. Via we mean through language, that with the help of language we can point out towards something, and that can be called as d-axis. Then if we further talk about the second definition that is given by Stephen C. Levinson. According to him, d-axis concerns way in which the interpretation of utterance depends on the analysis of that context of the utterance. Right, as you know that we are dealing this term in the area of pragmatics. So whenever there is the involvement of the context over there, you'll see that that area must be related to the utterances, or we can say that context itself. So this is the definition, this is the, we can say that, possible interpretation that is given by this person. Now d-axis is we can say that any word that cannot be interpreted without reference to the physical context. For example, the speaker, addressee, time and place of utterance. If we know all these things, then we can interpret the meaning of, we can say that, that term, that we can call it as d-axis. For example, you'll have to bring that back tomorrow because they aren't there now. So let's check it, this example. You'll see that out of context this sentence is extremely vague. Vague we mean it's totally unclear. So it contains a large number of expressions like you, that, tomorrow, they, here, now, which depends for their interpretation on the immediate physical context in which they are uttered or spoken by someone. So in order to understand the context of these words, so these words, if you look at the etymology of these words, there are some pronouns, then there are some special, or we can say that, markers. Then we can say that these are the words that cannot be, we can say that, interpreted without any reference or the context, right? So to interpret them, just to understand the meaning of what is said, what we are in need of a particular sort of context. So these words can only give us meaning when there should be, or when there would be some context, right? So these cannot be understood in terms of speaker's intended meaning. These are technically known as deictic expressions. So d-axis is also known as deictic expression. Now deictic, if we look at this term, this in grammar we mean that it is pertaining to d-axis, like to word whose meaning is dependent on the context. So deictic expression is the one whose meaning is totally dependent on the context itself, right? So that can be called as deictic expression. So now you can call this deictic expression, if we look at from the point of view of linguistics, any linguistic form used to accomplish pointing is called a deictic expression. So deictic expressions are also known as indexicals in the terms of pragmatics. So this can be one of the, we can say that, term that can be called as deictic expression or indexicals. So deictic expressions, so there are here are some of the, we can say that, features that are related to deictic expression. Deictic expressions are meaningful in a given context. This thing is already known to us that without context, meaning is totally sort of vague. We are unable to uh, understand the meaning of several expressions until and unless we don't know the context. Then they are among the first word acquired by children. I already have talked about child language acquisition in our previous lectures. So you will see that deictic expressions are the one that usually a child acquire very earlier in the, we can say that, very early stage of the acquisition process, that is called as one word stage, right? So over there they usually, we can say that the kids, we as a kid usually acquire these expressions like here, there, something like that. Then in order to be interpreted correctly, the speaker and the listener have to share the same context. So by sharing the same context, we mean that whenever, I already have told you, whenever the speaker and the listener, they used to communicate with one another, they always or almost share a background knowledge, or there is a sort of shared knowledge among them, so that is very necessary again. Then dialectic expressions, these are particularly useful in face to face communication. Do keep this thing in mind that whenever we talk to one another, we are in a, we can say that, communication, to the in communication with one another. So when we are in, we can say that, face to face communication, over there we usually use these dialectic expression. For example, if I say that pen is there, right? So you can catch it anytime. So you'll see that if I am talking about a pen or that pen, then I must use my gestures, or we can say that body language with that. So you'll see that whenever we communicate with the second person, and usually verbal communication, both the verbal and non-verbal features are actually going smoothly, but usually dialectic expressions are mostly used in face-to-face communication, right? Then dialectic expressions, if we so look at it over here in this sentence, so it's a sort of activity. Do note this activity with you, that what are the dialectic expressions in the following utterance. Over here, here is an utterance. You have to analyze that, and you have to check whether where is the use of dialectic expression in this particular sentence. I'm busy now, you can't do that here, come back tomorrow. So you have to underline the dialectic expression from that after completing this thing, right? So now types of dx's: person dx's, spatial dx's, and temporal dx's. So these are the three kinds. So first one is person dx's. Any expression used to point out person, like me, you, him, they, is an example of person dx's. Then spatial words used to point out to a location, like here, there, are example of place dx's. Then time or temporal dx's is the expression used to a time, now, then, tonight, last week, yesterday. These are the examples of time dx's. Now person dx's. Now one by one we are going to talk about the uh, types in detail, right? First one is person dx's. Person dx's operates on a basis three part division, exemplified by the pronouns. As you know that there are three personal pronouns in English, so all these three personal pronouns are actually person dx's as well. You'll see that the pronouns for the first person is I, second person you, and the third person he, she, it. A speech event includes at least two persons. Usually whenever a speech event occurs, it actually takes two persons with it. First person, that is called as speaker, and the second person is the addressee or the listener. Usually the third person is not grammatically marked, because the only two persons of importance are the first person and the second person. You'll see that always grammatically, if we look at the structures, two persons are very important in a particular speech, in a particular discourse, in a particular utterance. One is speaker and second is addressee or the listener. Then the pronouns, you'll see that all languages have personal pronouns, or at least words that refer to the participants of the speech acts. The pronouns of the first, like I, my, mine, and the second person, you, your, yours, are diacritic reference to the speaking person. So whenever we have to talk about person dx's, so we'll refer mostly to the first two personal pronouns, first person and the second person, right? Then it is also possible to have deictic pronouns for the third person, but you will see that over there, there was, we can say that grammatically there are some boundaries that we have to look at them. Then definite and specific pronouns, like this, that, these, those, these are called as definite pronouns in English, as you know them in grammar. So these also can be called as deictic, personal deictic pronouns, or we can say that personal dx's, right? Then indefinite and specific pronouns can also play the role of, we can say that, deictic expressions, like somebody, something, who, what. These are actually indefinite pronouns or the specific pronoun, but we can use them as deictic expressions as well. Indefinite and non-specific pronouns, like someone, something, nobody, nothing, these are again the words that always need some sort of reference, right, to explain the meaning of the particular utterance. Then next categories of social dx's. Social dx's, these are the forms used to indicate relative social status. In many languages, deictic categories become markers of relative social status, right? So you'll see that Yule has utilized a term in his book. He has used this term, honorifics, right? Honorifics, actually these are the expressions that mark the addressee of that marks that actually mark that the addressee is of higher status. Whenever you are addressing to someone who is of higher status, so keeping in view this term, you can use this word honorifics, right? Honorifics, we'll discuss this term in detail from that book of Yule, one by one, with the help of example. So example of social dx's over here is in Spanish, the to star distinction. This example is actually given by Yule himself in his book. So you'll see that the choice of one form will communicate something not directly said about the speaker's view of his relation with the addressee. So you'll see that whenever we used to speak anything to anyone, you'll see that we always keep in mind the relation between uh, the participant, that is the second participant who is with us in the conversation. So over here you'll see that whenever we talk about the participants in a particular speaker, we usually look at the relation, we look at our relation to the candidate as well. Then you'll see that now here are several factors that are very important, like the higher, older, and more powerful speaker will tend to use the to, and vice versa. These examples are actually not clear to you right now, so I am unable to make you clear them right now. The reason is this, that we'll discuss them in detail from the book. Then nowadays you'll see that the age distinction remains more powerful than the economic distinction in many countries, like using the third person form. You'll see that it communicates distance and non familiarity. Also, it has an ironic or humorous purpose, like in the example, would His Highness like some coffee? So you see that uh, His Highness is over here playing the role that is humorous in nature. Ironically, author is talking about someone. So third person is utilized, but just to make the statement more ironic in nature. Then we also used to make accusations, like somebody didn't clean up after himself. So you'll see that in this sentence somebody is actually creating uh, a mediating sort of effect. Like you'll see that it is less direct than "you didn't clean." It happens that we usually use such sort of statements in our structure as well, in Hindi, in Urdu as well. फलां बंदे ने ये काम कर दिया था, ये पता नहीं किसने कर दिया, like these sort of statements, right? So same as the case in this sentence, you'll see that somebody didn't clean up is actually direct. It is less direct one. If you say you didn't clean, then it is the direct one. So it can be, we can say that, insulting on the part of the speaker. Sorry, yes, both on the part of speaker and both listener. So just to make your participant feel good in a conversation, you can use this sort of structure. Now, space, spatial, place, dx's. The concept of distance is relevant to the spatial dx's, where the relative location of people and things is being indicated. Like some pure place deictic words are here and there, as we know that these are adverbs in English. Then this and that, these are called as demonstrative pronouns in English. So here we mean near, there we mean more distant. So the things that are actually away from the speaker, for them we can use that, right? And the thing that is nearer to the speaker, that can be this, right? Then demonstrative pronouns. This object is this object in a pragmatically given area close to the speaker's location. The same idea that I was interpreting just before. Then that the object beyond the pragmatically given area close to the speaker's location. If the things are nearer to you, then you can use these. And if the things are away from you, these are at distance, then you can use those, right? So example, I am writing to say I am having a marvelous time here includes the location of the speaker. Bring that here and take this there, away from the location of the speaker. So these examples are open and clear to you, I do hope. Then motion verbs. Then there are some motion verbs that actually indicate uh, this special dx's, like come versus go makes distinction between the direction of the motion. If I say she is coming, she is moving towards the speaker's location. She is going, she is moving away from the speaker's location. I am coming, the speaker is moving towards the location of the addressee. So these can be treated as motion of verbs, right? So time dx's, you will see that expressions that are referring to the time can be 5 minutes ago, tomorrow, last week, next Monday. So these all words or phrases can be called as time dx's, right? Then choice of tense, for example, if we are talking in time dx's, two tenses are very important. One is present tense and second is past tense. He does not know. If I say this, we mean that this is nearer to the point of reference. While if we are in past tense, yesterday I slept for 10 hours, this communicates distance from the current time. So dx's can be measured from the, we can say that these expressions we can use them with the help of the use of or the choice of tenses. If we are in the area of present tense, then the things are nearer to the point of reference. And if we are talking about past tense, then the things or the or anything that we wanna communicate is distance from the current time. Then conditionals. Conditionals in English, as you know, that the sentences that usually starts with the structure of if can be called as conditionals. So you might have this idea that there are three conditional tenses in English, right? The sentences usually that starts with the structure of if, these are called as conditional sentences. So you will see that conditional sentences over here, there is a example, right? If I won the lottery, I would. This communicates distance from current reality. If itself is indicating the word if self. If itself is communicating, right? That the thing the speaker talking about is way from the reality, distance from the current reality. Time dx is actually relevant to the various other diacritic elements in language. For example, greetings like good morning can only be used in the morning, then good night, good afternoon, they have got the same idea, right? No one says in the evening that good morning. No one say, if anyone is using this structure, then it must be uh, the statement that is full of ironic or something like that. Then there are some expressions like the former president, my ex roommate. So these actually also indicate the time dxs. Then dxs and grammar. The distinction for person, spatial and temporal dxs can be seen at work in English grammar structures such as direct and indirect reported speech, right? Are you planning to be here in the evening? I asked her. So you'll see that over here in this reported speech or the reporting speech, there is the use of again personal, spatial, and temporal dx's. Then reported form. If you look at the reported form of this sentence, are you planning to be here this evening? I asked her if she was planning to be there that evening. If we convert it from direct into indirect one, then you'll see that there is a shift from the near speaker meaning of direct speech to the away from the speaker meaning of reported speech with the use of distal diacritic forms. So what you have to do is rewrite the sentence and then check this out, that what are the things that actually create this distal diacritic forms while converting from direct speech into the indirect one. So I think this much is enough for today. I do hope we have covered the basics of dx's right now. Rest of the details, inshallah, we will cover in our physical classroom and from the book that we are dealing, George Jules Pragmatic. uh, and if you have any ambiguity or if you have any question, do ask me in the question sections. Thank you so much.